Pryor, you listen to me. I don't care what you do once this thing's over with. You can lay down and die and rot.
To the world, he was Huss Cartwright, the gentle giant of the Ponderosa with a heart as big as his frame. Dan Blocker was one of the most beloved stars on television, a friendly face welcomed into millions of homes every week. For 14 seasons, his portrayal of the warm, lovable middle brother on Bonanza made him a cultural icon. The character of Huss was the heartbeat of the show, filled with a compassion that resonated deeply with viewers. His public persona was that of an easygoing, kind-hearted man, a reputation backed up by those who knew him, but behind that warm smile, a different story has been whispered for decades. Hollywood is a town built on collaboration, but it's also a place of intense pressure and clashing egos. Whispers from the set suggested that behind the scenes, Blocker was caught up in some bitter conflicts. A tantalizing rumor has persisted in the shadow of his gentle legacy. That in the final years of his life, Dan Blocker kept a list of the 5 actors he despised the most. Today, we're investigating that explosive claim. We're going to peel back the layers of time, separate fact from fiction, and look at the relationships that defined Dan Blocker's career. Was he really the gentle giant everyone loved, or was there a darker side, a man who held deep grudges against some of Hollywood's biggest names? We are going to uncover the alleged feuds Dan Blocker may have taken to his grave and reveal the truth behind the rumor of his secret hate list. The first name on this rumored list is probably the most predictable one, Pernell Roberts. Roberts played the suave, educated eldest Cartwright brother, Adam, and his relationship with Bonanza was rocky from the start. It's this very public tension that has fueled rumors of a deep-seated animosity with his co-stars, including Dan Blocker. Roberts was a classically trained stage actor who found series television to be creatively draining. He'd signed on expecting Bonanza to have complex characters and sharp scripts, but he quickly grew disillusioned with what he saw as simplistic, formula-driven stories. He famously questioned the show's premise, once asking a reporter, "Isn't it a bit silly for 3 adult males to have to ask fathers' permission for everything they do?" This kind of critique put him at odds with production and, supposedly, with the other actors who had fully embraced their roles, while Lorne Greene, Michael Landon, and Dan Blocker formed a tight-knit unit that felt like a real family. Roberts often remained an outsider by choice. He clashed with producers and writers, sometimes even crossing out lines he found phony. This professional dissatisfaction is the foundation of the rumor that his co-stars, especially the easygoing Dan Blocker, grew to resent his negativity. Some stories claim Blocker, who was fiercely loyal to the show, was relieved when Roberts finally left in 1965, thinking the set would be more peaceful. The whispers of a feud got much louder in 1972 after Dan Blocker's tragic and unexpected death. Hollywood gathered to mourn the star, but one person was noticeably absent from the funeral, Pernell Roberts. To many, his failure to show up was the ultimate snub, a final confirmation of years of bad blood. But is that the whole story? When you dig a little deeper, the narrative of a personal feud starts to fall apart. Roberts' issues were with the show's creative direction, not necessarily with the actors. He felt his talents were being wasted and that the role was a real crusher, mentally, so much so that he even sought a doctor's help. Dan Blocker, for his part, was a total professional. While he was loyal to Bonanza, there's no credible evidence he held any personal grudges against Roberts. In fact, reports from the time indicate that Blocker's funeral was a private, family-only service. The family had specifically requested that the Bonanza co-stars not attend, a wish that everyone, including Roberts, respected. This crucial piece of information reframes his absence not as an act of disrespect, but as him honoring the family's wishes. Years later, when asked about Blocker, Roberts spoke of him with quiet admiration, calling him a gentle, kind, professional person. That doesn't sound like a man talking about someone he hated. Their feud seems to be a classic case of professional conflict being mistaken for personal dislike. Roberts was a serious artist who felt trapped, while Blocker was a man who loved his role and embraced it. Their philosophies were different, but the idea of a deep-seated hatred seems to be more Hollywood legend than reality. the second name on Dan Blocker's rumored hate list is Guy Williams, the charismatic star best known as Zorro. Williams' arrival on the Ponderosa in 1964 was a direct result of the chaos surrounding Pernell Roberts. With Roberts wanting out, the network scrambled for a backup plan. Their solution was to introduce a new character who could fill Adam Cartwright's shoes, a dashing cousin named Will Cartwright, played by Williams. The moment he arrived on set, there was a definite tension, but it wasn't personal. It was a tension born from messing with the delicate chemistry of a hit show. The heart of Bonanza was the dynamic between a father and his three sons. Bringing in a fourth, similar male lead threatened to throw that whole balance off. The rumor mill suggests that Dan Blocker was particularly suspicious of Williams' presence. The story goes that Blocker saw Williams not as a colleague, but as an intruder, a network-mandated replacement who could change the very family dynamic that made the show a hit. The whispers claim this professional concern turned into genuine personal dislike, but this is another case where a grain of truth got spun into a tale of hatred. The truth, according to Dan Blocker himself, was about professional concerns, not personal feelings. In an interview with the Pittsburgh Press, Blocker laid out the situation with remarkable clarity. He confirmed the plan was for Williams' character to replace Adam, but he also saw a major creative flaw. Blocker pointed out that Guy Williams' screen persona, the swashbuckling leading man, was way too similar to Michael Landon's character, Little Joe. He explained, Guy Williams is the same type of character that Mike plays. They'll have to divide the scripts for this kind of character. Blocker knew this would create an overlap and internal competition for storylines, which could weaken both characters. He even showed empathy for his co-stars, saying, I know I'd be upset if they brought Alan Hale Jr., for example, into the show, because he's the same kind of character I am. This wasn't a man consumed by hate, this was a savvy actor who understood how his show worked. He wasn't attacking Williams personally, he was critiquing a network decision. Far from hating Guy Williams, Blocker actually expressed sympathy for the tough spot he was in. He put it all in perspective, saying, but this is not an insurmountable problem. We're intelligent, adult people. We can work it out. He went on to praise Williams directly, proving there was no grudge. I sympathize with Guy Williams. I know Guy. I made a couple of Zorros with him, and he's a sweet guy and a fine talent. Calling someone a sweet guy and a fine talent is hardly the language of hatred. The so-called feud was just a professional disagreement. In the end, Blocker was right. The Will Cartwright experiment lasted only 5 episodes. Pernell Roberts stayed for one more season, and Guy Williams moved on to star in another iconic show, Lost in Space. The rumor of Blocker's hatred for him is a complete fabrication. This is probably the most shocking and unbelievable name to appear on any rumored list of Dan Blocker's enemies, Michael Landon. On screen, they were Hoss and Little Joe, the perfect brothers. Their relationship was the emotional core of the Cartwright family. Off-screen, by all credible accounts, their bond was just as strong, if not stronger. And yet, Hollywood gossip has allowed a counter-narrative to emerge, one that suggests that underneath all the brotherly love, there was a simmering resentment. The rumor is that Dan Blocker grew to despise what he saw as Michael Landon's relentless ambition and his growing control over Bonanza. As the series went on, Landon started writing and directing episodes, becoming a huge creative force. The whispers claim that Blocker saw this as a power grab that shifted the show's focus squarely onto Little Joe, often at the expense of other characters. It's a story of jealousy, of two brothers driven apart by ambition. This particular rumor isn't just baseless, it's an insult to the incredibly well-documented friendship between the two men. The evidence proving this wrong is overwhelming. Far from being rivals, Dan Blocker and Michael Landon were extremely close friends. They were family. Their bond was so strong that Dan Blocker was the best man at Michael Landon's wedding. That's not something you do for a colleague you secretly hate. Their friendship was built on mutual respect and a shared sense of humor. Landon himself said, "Our relationship was very close." He fondly remembered how after 7 years of working together, they'd run out of new jokes and just started telling the old ones over again. The most powerful proof against this rumored feud comes from the aftermath of Dan Blocker's tragic death in 1972. Landon was absolutely devastated. The first episode of the final season was a story Landon had originally written as a romance for Haas. After Blocker died, a heartbroken Landon had to rewrite it for himself, adding a few simple lines to acknowledge Haas's death. He believed the loss was so profound that it was best handled with stillness and silence, not long speeches. A guest star on that episode witnessed Landon's grief firsthand, recalling that after filming Wrapped, Landon broke down while giving a speech to the crew. For years after, Landon admitted that whenever he needed to cry for a scene in his later shows, he would just think about Dan Blocker. The idea that Dan Blocker hated Michael Landon is a complete fabrication. Theirs was a deep and genuine brotherhood. After his friend's death, Landon, along with Lorne Greene, bought a stretch of Malibu Beach and dedicated it as Dan Blocker Beach to honor his memory. The plaque reads, "Faithful husband, loving father, talented actor, gentle giant and precious friend." These are not the actions of a rival, but of a devoted friend. Before we get to the final 2 actors on this supposed list, if you're finding this investigation into Hollywood history fascinating, take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're always digging into the real stories behind the stars, and we'd love to have you join us. Now, let's get back to the Ponderosa. It seems almost impossible to imagine any friction between Haas Cartwright and his father, Ben. But in the world of Hollywood rumors, even the strongest relationships are fair game. The 4th name on the alleged list is Lorne Greene, the man who played the respected patriarch of the Cartwright clan. The whispers here are a bit more subtle, focusing on a classic power dynamic. The rumor suggests that over 14 years, Dan Blocker grew tired of Lorne Greene's fatherly attitude, both on and off the set. The story goes that Greene so fully embodied Ben Cartwright that he started treating his adult co-stars like his actual sons. According to this narrative, Blocker, a former teacher and a man who was very much his own person, came to resent Greene's father figure status. This rumor paints a picture of a quiet rebellion, with Blocker bristling under the authority of a man who was his colleague, not his actual dad. But once again, this story dissolves under the slightest bit of scrutiny. The relationship between Dan Blocker and Lorne Greene wasn't one of resentment, it was one of deep, mutual affection and respect. By all accounts, they were incredibly close friends. Lorne Greene himself was shattered by Blocker's death, a reaction that says everything about their bond. He said, "After Dan's death, I didn't see how the show could continue. I said to my wife, that's it. It's finished." Those are the words of a man who lost not just a co-worker, but a vital part of his life. He felt that with Blocker gone, the show had lost its soul. Greene also knew the real Dan Blocker, beyond the gentle giant label. He knew about the complexities Blocker carried from his time in the Korean War and the pressures of fame. He didn't just see Haas, he saw Dan, and he admired him deeply. The father figure dynamic that the rumors twist into a negative was actually a source of stability on set. Bonanza's creator noted that both Blocker and Landon would often go to Greene with their problems, not because they had to, but because they valued his wisdom. This wasn't a controlling patriarch, this was a respected mentor and friend. The claim that Dan Blocker hated Lorne Greene is a complete fabrication, an attempt to create drama where there was only friendship. The final name on this phantom list takes us away from the Ponderosa and over to the dusty streets of Dodge City. James Arness, the towering star of Gunsmoke, is the last alleged rival. The rumor suggests this professional competition spilled over into personal animosity, especially between the two show's biggest men, the 6'4" Dan Blocker and the 6'7" James Arness. The story paints a picture of two giants of the small screen who were also giant rivals in real life. The idea is that Blocker, fiercely proud of Bonanza, couldn't stand Arness and the long shadow his show cast over television. but is there any truth to this? Did Dan Blocker really hate James Arness? The answer is a simple and absolute no. There is no credible evidence, no interview, no anecdote from anyone on either show, to suggest any personal bad blood between them. The feud was entirely a creation of the media and network marketing. Bonanza and Gunsmoke were rivals in the same way that Ford and Chevy are rivals. It was just business. In fact, Dan Blocker had appeared on Gunsmoke in a couple of episodes before he was even cast on Bonanza. He was a working actor, and there's nothing to suggest his experience on that set was anything but professional. Blocker was known for his good nature. He was a man who famously quoted a line about kindness. "We shall pass this way on earth but once, if there is any kindness we can show, let us do it now, for we will never pass this way again." This philosophy doesn't exactly line up with the idea of him holding a years-long grudge against a rival actor. The rivalry was between NBC's Bonanza and CBS's Gunsmoke, not between the men who brought the shows to life. So, after digging through the whispers and the Hollywood lore, what did we find? Does Dan Blocker's secret hate list actually exist? The answer is a resounding no. The entire idea of a list of actors Dan Blocker hated is a fabrication, a myth built from misinterpreted professional disagreements and sensationalized stories. Our investigation has shown that in every single case, the rumor falls apart. The feud with Pernell Roberts was about artistic differences with the show, not a personal fight. The tension with Guy Williams was a professional concern, and Blocker himself called Williams a sweet guy. The claim of resentment toward Michael Landon is completely debunked by their deep, brotherly friendship. The idea of a rivalry with Lorne Greene is contradicted by their close, father-son-like bond. And the alleged competition with James Arness was a network rivalry, not a personal vendetta. The man at the center of these rumors was, by all credible accounts, one of the most well-liked people in television. He was described as a gentle giant and a devoted family man who was grounded, kind, and professional. His legacy isn't one of secret feuds, but of warmth, humor, and heart. The story of Dan Blocker's hate list is a powerful reminder of how easily rumors can distort the truth. It makes for a juicy story, but it just isn't true. The world knew Dan Blocker as the gentle giant from Bonanza, and it seems that's exactly who he was. What do you think about these Hollywood rumors? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the true stories of your favorite stars. Thanks for watching.